this video, I have some new, to me, mouthpieces that we're going to talk about. My name is Josh Gu, and after years of studying the clarinet with some of the best teachers from around the world, I am excited to be sharing my knowledge with you. So go to QuickStartClarinet.com or check the description on this video to see all of the wonderful resources I have to help you reach your clarinet dreams. And of course, subscribe to this channel for weekly clarinet and music tips and tricks. Over the past month or so, I've been trying out the Backun Vocalise Mouthpieces designed by Richard Hawkins. I had all three of the main models, the R, the G, and the H, and got to play them quite a bit, which was fantastic. I ended up keeping the H, which was my favorite out of the three, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about my experience with them, give them a little bit of a review, and I also am going to talk about what you should be looking for in a mouthpiece when you're testing out some new mouthpieces. And to start with that, I actually want to explain that I'm not going to be playing in this video and showing you sort of how the mouthpiece sounds, because I kind of think that that's not that important. Yes, there's maybe a few little sound quality things that I'm going to mention with this, but my general philosophy on equipment is you're gonna sound the way that you sound. Once you have the time to find the right reed and get used to the new equipment, you're gonna pretty much sound very similar to the way that you've always sounded. But what's much, much more important is how it feels and how easy it is to play. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. That's not something that you can get by listening to me play. So that's why I'm not actually demonstrating how the mouthpiece sounds. I'm sure you can find lots of demonstrations of people playing the mouthpieces, but again, just because somebody sounds good on the mouthpiece doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to sound like that. You're going to sound much more similar to how you sound now, with maybe just a couple things that feel a little bit different. So getting into the mouthpieces, there's a lot of cool things that they're doing. They're just even the table shape is very unique. The baffle shape is unique. The way that it's actually manufactured. There's a lot of cool things going on here. I don't know all the secrets and the ins and outs, but if you check out on the Clarinet podcast, episode 136 and also 135 a little bit, Richard Hawkins was on for those two episodes. 136 talks about some of the other models, but I think there's lots of good information about sort of the Vocalise line in general in those episodes. So that would be a good place to get some general information about this and hear from Richard Hawkins himself on sort of how things are going. Now, let me talk about how I felt playing on these mouthpieces, and I'm going to do it in order of sort of how you should be thinking about picking a mouthpiece. So the first really important thing for mouthpieces in general is it's got to feel good, and you got to be able to get the sound that you want. I felt like there was a great amount of control in these mouthpieces. They're super duper even. That's a really important aspect of sound quality, that you want a mouthpiece that feels similar on the low notes, feels similar on the high notes, and everything in between is nice and even, which these mouthpieces do an exceptional job of. That's, I think, one of my favorite components of these is the evenness throughout the registers. On the right reed, the throat tones even sound really good, even sometimes without resonance fingerings, which is really cool. I also have had experiences with other reeds where the throat tones did make a big difference on the resonance fingering, so it's a little bit reed dependent there, and again, why it's almost doesn't make sense to play this for you, because the reed makes such a difference, everything else makes such a difference. But overall, super duper consistent, super even across all the registers, very responsive, lots of good stuff going there. So that's the first thing, is you want just general sound quality, general easiness of playing, general evenness across all the registers is really important. The next thing that's super duper important for your mouthpiece is intonation. The mouthpiece is sort of where the sound is originating from, the reed vibrating against the mouthpiece, and the dimensions of the mouthpiece can make a big difference in intonation across the instrument. So the first thing is just general intonation. Sometimes a mouthpiece might play sharper than another mouthpiece overall, which you can deal with by pulling out or adjusting things like that. The other thing that's maybe even more important is you want to make sure that the 12ths are in tune. So like your thumb F and then thumb and register key C, make sure that those are in a similar place. If those are really far from each other, that's something that you can't really fix and you're going to have to be adjusting like crazy. And again, a good player can make those adjustments and do what's necessary to bring everything in line, but equipment is about how much work you're willing to put in as the player to wrangle the equipment to be what you want. The Vocalise mouthpieces, absolutely fantastic for intonation. Very nice, easy to play, right in tune. The 12ths are really spot on. There wasn't really anything that I found that was sticking out in an unusual way. Yes, the like low F and low E were still a little bit flat, but actually not too bad. My C and D, in the like middle space of the staff and second to top line of the staff D, are terribly sharp usually, and actually on these mouthpieces I was able to get that sort of in line as well. So really happy with the intonation on these, and I'll give a little spoiler to my conclusion. I'm split on staying with my old mouthpiece or switching to this, and the intonation might be the deal breaker. That intonation is easier on this, and maybe in certain situations I'll use the Vocalise when I really need to play more in tune, which is always important, but I'll talk about a couple other things that are pros for my other mouthpiece as well. So, intonation's great. The next thing that I think is really important is articulation. Also really nice on these mouthpieces, super duper responsive. You want to make sure that your mouthpiece is allowing the reed to vibrate so that when you take your tongue off, the sound is coming out right away, and the Vocalise mouthpieces do that very, very well. So those are the main things that the mouthpiece is going to have a big impact on. Generally how easy it is, articulation, getting the notes out, and intonation, making sure especially those 12ths are in tune. So those are the big important things to be looking out for. And then of course there's the more subjective stuff of just how does it feel for you? Maybe you're able to get the sound that you want, but is it easy to get the sound that you want? Things like that are going to be questions that you want to ask yourself. So let's get into that side of things a little bit more. So as I alluded to earlier, I'm a little bit torn. Like I really like the new mouthpiece and I'm definitely considering it. But the thing that I like about my old mouthpiece more is that there's more flexibility to it. I think one of the pros of the Vocalise mouthpieces is they're very centered and like they give you the sound and it's very consistent, which is great. Consistency is really important, but I feel like they're ever so slightly lacking in the flexibility and the ability to get as many tone colors as I want, whereas my old mouthpiece does that very well. My old mouthpiece plays a little bit sharper generally and is a little bit harder to play in tune, but is more expressive. This mouthpiece much easier to play in tune, but maybe a little less expressive. So I definitely could see in the future finding a spot for, in these ensembles and in these pieces and these situations, the Vocalise will be the right fit, and in other situations, my other mouthpiece might be the right fit. But we'll see as I continue to experiment. Another thing that's a big part of this that I want to talk about is the reeds, because reeds make just as much difference, if not more difference, than the mouthpiece itself. And I found from the R, G, and H, it's kind of interesting on the Backun website, they recommend a size 2.5 to 4 reed for all of the mouthpieces, which I think is very interesting. And that's, if I remember right, something in the Clarinet podcast that Richard Hawkins talks about, is he wanted very sort of neutral mouthpieces where you can put just a regular comfortable size reed really on all three of them and make it work really well. And I didn't find that to be the case really at all. Maybe a little bit, but not very much. I definitely found that on the H I needed softer reeds, and on the R I needed harder reeds. On the R I played with the D'Addario Reserve Evolution size 4 and liked it pretty well. On the G, the 4 was quite hard, and on the H, the 4 was very, very hard. Right now I'm playing the H with the D'Addario Reserve Evolution size 3, and even those are feeling a little bit tough. They're pretty new, so as they break in, I think they'll be just about right for the mouthpiece. And I also played the G on a Van Doren traditional 3 and found that to be relatively comfortable as well, maybe just a touch on the soft side. So there is maybe a world where a 3.5 could work on all 3 mouthpieces, but I think you want to go with the traditional logic of the more narrow tip opening mouthpieces are going to want the little bit harder reed, and the more open is going to want the little bit softer reed. And just to clarify, the R is the most closed, the G is medium, and the H is the most open. And I think they follow the general reed logic like I just mentioned. So overall, I think these are really interesting mouthpieces, really nice quality mouthpieces for sure. They're at a nice price point where they're right around the same price as a Van Doren mouthpiece, which the Van Doren mouthpieces are great as well, but maybe a little bit less consistent. I think for most people, especially more amateur players, I think the Vocalise does provide a great opportunity to help everything stay contained. Whereas if you're looking for lots and lots of flexibility and big expressive changes, I think maybe a different mouthpiece would be better, maybe. Again, the Vocalise is quite good, and I do think as I get used to it and continue experimenting more and find the reeds that are just right for it, I think it will have quite a bit of potential. Like I said, I'm definitely considering using it in performances, given different specific situations where it may be very useful to have something that plays in tune really easily and is just very consistent and reliable. And I think that's how I would overall sum up the Vocalise mouthpieces, is they're very consistent, very reliable, even across the registers. Intonation's really solid. It's lots of things that you would really like in a mouthpiece. So hopefully this was some interesting information for you. Let me know if you have any questions or anything you would like to know specifically about these mouthpieces, and I'll see if I can have an answer or find an answer for you. Thanks so much for watching this video. And if you're still watching, I have something really special to tell you about. On September 19th, 2022, so coming up really shortly, I'm going to be doing a new live free training about sort of simplifying practice. The title of it is Anxiety-Free Performance Through Simple Practice. And though I can't guarantee no anxiety, I think anybody who says that they have no performance anxiety is lying. I can help you to find a way to have a lot less anxiety when you're performing, and find ways to simplify your practice and supercharge your practice so that you're actually making more progress in less time. The progress feels more satisfying, and instead of it being this overwhelming jumble of all the things that you're supposed to do, I have this framework that really simplifies it down to like, this is what you need to work on, this is what you need to work on, this is how you do that. And I think it's going to be really fun and really powerful. So if you're interested in attending that completely free training, it's going to be over Zoom on September 19th. Go to quickstartclarinet.com/simple. I'll make sure that that link is in the description as well, and you can check it out, get registered. Even if you can't make it live on September 19th, be sure to actually register for it, because everybody who's registered will get the recorded replay. And I'm not going to be posting this replay on YouTube. So go to quickstartclarinet.com/simple. I think you're really going to enjoy that training. Thanks for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one, or at the training.